Hey, welcome YouTube. I'm Aniket and you are watching Vet Study. So this is the second video in the series of splanchology, and in this video we will discuss about the tongue, a very important organ. So before starting, I recommend you that you can follow me on Instagram, and on my Instagram you can get notification and news before YouTube. Link is in the description. So let's start with the topic. So today's topic is tongue. So it is very important and a highly movable muscular structure, and let's talk about its function. So the function of tongue are three, right? So there are different function of tongue for different species, and if we talk about the animals, the main functions are the prehension, mastication, and the third one is the deglutition. So these are the three main functions for animals. And if we talk about the humans, then this is the organ for taste also, as we all know. And in humans, it is the organ for speech. Now this is the function. Now let's talk about the position where this organ is situated. So this organ is situated at the floor of the mouth, as we all know, between the two rami of lower jaw. I think you all know the rami of the mandible. So if we look at the mandible, this is the mandible, one rami, and this is the mandible, other rami, right? So this is the position of tongue between the rami of two mandible. Okay, so this is the position. Now let's talk about the parts. So parts, if we talk about the parts, the tongue have three main parts. The first one is the root, the second one is the body, and the third one is the apex, right? So let's discuss about the root. So root is the let me show you. This is the part of root. This is the lingual root, right? So this is the root part, this is the body part, and this is the apex part. These are the three main part. Okay, so if we talk about the root first, it is a very thick part, as you can see in the image. This is very thick portion, and it is attached to the hyoid bone. So this root part is attached to the hyoid bone and mandible. Uh, it is attached to the hyoid bone by the hyoglossus muscle, right? You can remember this. It is attached to the hyoid bone through the hyoglossus muscle, and it is attached to the mandible through the genioglossus muscle. So let me show you the position of hyoglossus and genioglossus muscle. So just look at this diagram. This is the genioglossus muscle. As you can see, this is the tongue and this is the mandible, right? So it is attached to this tongue and the mandible. Now other muscle is the genioglossus muscle. Hyoglossus muscle. Hyoglossus muscle attaches the tongue to the hyoid bone, as we all know, right? Apart from this, the tongue attached to the soft palate through the anterior pillars. Just remember the word anterior pillars, right? And it is also attached to the pharynx by the muscles and membranes, different muscles and membranes, and through the epiglottis by the glossoepiglottic fold. So there are four attachment of the root. There are four attachments of the root, four root attachments. The first is the hyoid bone and the mandible, right? The second is the soft palate. The third one is the pharynx, and the fourth is the epiglottis. Epiglottis, right? So these are the four main attachment, and I already discussed about the it is attached to which muscle. Hyoglossus muscle and genioglossus muscle, soft palate through the anterior pillars, and pharynx muscle and different membranes, and epiglottis glossoepiglottic fold. uh, Comment down in the comment section if you find it difficult with the language. ठीक है, आप बताइएगा कि मैं हिंदी में ज़्यादा आप कंफर्टेबल हैं या इंग्लिश में कंफर्टेबल हैं. बहुत से लोगों ने मुझे इंग्लिश में बोलने के लिए कहा था, इसलिए मैं इंग्लिश में आपको बता रहा हूँ. ठीक है, तो आप बताइएगा अगर आपको कहीं कोई प्रॉब्लम आ रही है. So this is the root attachments. Now let's discuss about the surface. If we talk about the surface, so this is the dorsal surface of the root, right? This is the dorsal surface, and the dorsal surface is free. When we talk about the ventral part of this surface, it is attached. Most part is fixed, right? So the dorsal surface of the root is free, whereas the ventral portion is fixed. Most portion is fixed. So this is all about the root. Now let's talk about the body. As we already discussed, there are three main portions, right? The first one is the root is covered. Now let's discuss about the body of the tongue. So if we talk about the body have three main surfaces. The body have three main surfaces. Okay, body, three surfaces. Only three surfaces are present. The first surface, the two lateral surface, and the one dorsal surface. Right. So two lateral surface and one dorsal surface. So let's talk about the dorsal surface first. The dorsal surface is free. As you can see, this is the body, this is the dorsal surface. It is free, and it is known as the dorsum linguae. This terminology is very important, right? So this is known as the dorsum linguae. This term can be asked in your exam. Okay, so the dorsal surface of body is known as the dorsum linguae. This surface present a raised area at the posterior part, and there are many prominence on this surface, which is known as the torus linguae. Torus linguae. So this surface is known as the dorsum linguae. There is a prominent or the prominence at the posterior part, or the raised area at the posterior part. This is known as the torus linguae, and there is transverse groove at this surface, which is known as the lingual fossa, right? Which is known as the lingual fossa. So I hope it is clear to you. The dorsal surface, I discussed three things here: the dorsum linguae, and the torus linguae, and lingual fossa. These are three main things which I discuss on the dorsal surface of body. So what was the dorsum linguae? Dorsum linguae is the free surface. Dorsal surface is also known as the dorsum linguae. Okay, so this term. Now these two terms, the torus linguae is the prominence at the posterior part of the body, right? And this is the transverse groove. So these are three main terms which you should remember, and these may be asked in your exam. Now let's discuss about the apex portion. So when we discuss about the apex portion is this. This is the lingual apex. So this is the lingual apex, right? So this apex is thin, as you can see, comparative to the root and the body. This is thin, and it is blunt, and it have a rounded border, as you can see, right? So this is thin, blunt, and rounded border structure, and the anterior border is free. So this is the anterior border, and you can see it is free, whereas the posterior border, it is continuous. This is the posterior border, you can imagine, and it is continuous with the body, right? So the anterior border is free, whereas the posterior border is continuous with the body, and the anterior border is highly protectile, right? So main the prehension work and all that thing done by this. Apart from this, this is only the structure, right? Now let's discuss about the composition. So how the tongue is composed, what are the things which make the tongue, right? There are five main things which we have to study in the tongue composition. The first is the mucous membrane. Note down if you want this. The second is the muscles. So there are two type of muscles, extrinsic and intrinsic, right? We will discuss about that. The third one is the glands. The fourth one are the vessels, and these may be blood or lymphatic vessels, right? And the fifth one is the nerves. So these are the things which make the tongue. Let's discuss one by one. The mucous, let's discuss first about the mucous membrane. So the mucous membrane is pigmented, and the fold of mucous membrane which connect the ventral surface of the tongue with floor is known as the frenum linguae. So let me show you. This is the frenum linguae, or you can say the lingual frenulum. The different name can be given to this fold. So this is the fold which I talked about. So this is the fold of mucous membrane which basically attach the tongue to the floor of the mouth, right? So this is very important portion, and this may be asked in your exam. At the dorsal surface of this, so this is the story of the ventral part. So this is the ventral part of the tongue. I think you all are aware about the dorsal and ventral portion at this point, right? So this is the ventral part, and this one is the dorsal part. So at the ventral part, this lingual frenulum fold. But what it does at the dorsal part? At the dorsal part, this mucous membrane form the papillas, right? So they are firmly attached. This mucous membrane firmly attached with with the muscles through the connective tissue, and at the dorsal surface they make the papilla. So there are different type of papilla. Let's discuss about them. So there are the broad categorization are is two. The first one is the mechanical, and the second one is the gustatory. Gustatory means taste, right? So there are two type of papilla, mechanical and gustatory. In mechanical we have filiform, we have conical, we have marginal, right? In gustatory we have fungiform, we have valate or circumvallate, and we have the foliate, right? So these are the papilla. So let me brief. We are discussing about the mucous membrane, and in mucous membrane we discuss the ventral part. Now we are discussing the dorsal part. At dorsal part, this mucous membrane form the papilla. So we are discussing about the papilla, right? So let's discuss about the filiform papilla first. As you can see here, these are the filiform papilla, right? So this is the structure of filiform papilla, and these are numerous and distributed throughout the dorsal surface of the tongue, rostral to the transverse groove. And as you can see, these filiform papillas are directed backward. Okay, so if this is the tongue, they are directed towards the backward portion, right, at the dorsal surface. And let's discuss about the fungiform papilla. These are the large fungiform papilla. These are large and scattered among the filiform papilla. So if this is the filiform papilla, these may be fungiform papilla which are scattered among them. And the main differentiating feature of this fungiform papilla from the filiform papilla is that they bear the taste buds, right? Next we have the lenticular papilla, and the image is not there. Lenticular papilla are rounded, and they are formed by the mucous membrane of torus linguae, which I discussed. What was the torus linguae? The prominent portion of the root, right? Next is the conical papilla. So conical papilla is present on the anterior and anterolateral aspect of the torus linguae. Let me show you. This is the torus linguae, or the prominent portion. So the conical is present at that point, and these are conical in shape. That is why the name is given to them. Next is valate papillae, or the circumvallate papillae, right? Valate papillae, or the other name is the circumvallate papillae. These are large, and the number is 7 to 8 in case of cattle, and each papilla is encircled by a wall, as you can see, by a wall. That is why it is called as the circumvallate, right? So if this is a papilla, it is encircled by a wall, and that is why it is called as a circumvallate. It is situated at the posterior part of the dorsal surface. As you can see, these are the circumvallate papillae, and if I zoom this image, as you can see, so that is why it is called as the circumvallate papillae, and these are present at the posterior part. Remember this, the position is very important. These are present at the posterior part of the dorsal surface, and they also bear the taste bud, right? So this is the valate or the circumvallate papillae. Now we already discussed about the papillae. These are some other images which you can see. This is the conical papillae. this was left now. So this is the conical papillae, and these are very prominent. You can see these papillae by your naked eyes in case of ruminant, right? Just open the mouth of any ruminant, whether cattle or buffalo, and you can see these papillae. These are mechanical papillae. These are very prominent. You can also touch these papillae, right? And these are the conical papillae of ox, and the function is mechanical, as we all know. Next is the fungiform papillae. So these are the fungiform papillae, these are the marginal papillae, and so this is the image. Now, as I told you, the valid papillae or the circumvallate papillae, they are encircled. That is why they are called as the circumvallate papillae, right? So you can see the actual image. See, they are encircled by it, right? So this is very important thing, because images will make you learn and will make you remember the papillae or the other anatomy. Anatomy is all about the image, right? So these are the valid papillae also. These are the fungiform papillae. So this is as you can differentiate between the papillae. This is the circumvallate papillae and this is the fungiform papillae. These are the conical papillae. So this is the histological image of papillae and circumvallate papillae of goat, right? Now, after papillae, let's discuss about the taste bud, right? So a taste bud have three main structures. The first one is the body, the second is the neck, and the third one is the taste pore. These are the three main structures which are present in the taste buds, right? So the body is oval in shape, and the neck and the taste pore. These are the three main things. As you can see, this is the body portion and neck portion, and the taste pore is this, right? So the mucous membrane is composed of papilla and thick layer of stratified squamous epithelium. The type of epithelium is very important here, right? I can write here. Stratified squamous epithelium. So remember this, mucous membrane is composed of papillae and thick layer of stratified squamous epithelium, right? So we have done with the mucous membrane. हमने mucous membrane cover कर लिया. Now let's discuss about the lingual glands, right? So if we talk about the lingual glands, so this is the second portion, lingual gland. Lingual gland. So lingual gland are small and lobulated, and they are embedded within the muscles. So if we talk about the muscles, two type of muscles are present. We will discuss it later. But for your knowledge, two type of muscle, extrinsic or intrinsic. So these lingual glands are present in the intrinsic muscle of the tongue, and number are more at the root surface. These gland number are more at the root part, right? These glands open at the valid papillae. As you can see, these, I think you all are aware. Okay, so these open at the valid papillae, and the valid papillae and known as the gustatory gland. So three things you have to remember. These glands are small, lobulated, and embedded within the muscles, mainly the intrinsic muscle, and number are more at the root part, and they are open at the valid papillae. Lymphoid follicles present at the root of the tongue, and these are known as the lingual tonsil. As we all know about the structure or the function of the lymphoid follicles, so they are present at the root portion, right? So this is the lingual gland. Now we discuss about the mucous membrane, we discuss about the gland. Now let's discuss about the muscles. So there are, as I already told you, that there are two type of muscle, intrinsic and extrinsic, right? So intrinsic muscles are those muscles which are present within the tongue, right? If this is the tongue, and remember this thing, that this is highly muscular structure, right? So this is composed of some muscles. Okay, so the muscles present within the tongue are the intrinsic muscle, whereas the muscles present outside the tongue, or which provide the attachment to the tongue, are known as the extrinsic muscle, right? So let's talk about the intrinsic muscle first. You don't have to go in detail about these muscles, just learn superficially. So intrinsic muscle are the muscles of they are the skeletal muscle, and they are directed in longitudinal, transverse and vertical direction. So there are okay, so there are different, they may be transverse, they may be longitudinal, and they may be vertical. Transverse means, if this is the structure, let me show you. If this is the structure, the transverse means this. Some muscles present like this, okay? Some muscles present like this. This is longitudinal. The first one was the transverse, and this some muscles present like this. Okay, this is this 3D structure. Vertical muscle will be present like this. Okay, so these are different intrinsic muscle, and the longitudinal muscle will be superior and inferior. This longitudinal muscle will be superior and inferior. Okay, apart from this, let's discuss about the extrinsic muscle. So extrinsic muscle are also skeletal muscle, and they have attachment outside the tongue, as I already told you, right? So there are four major muscle in this also. एक्सट्रिंसिक फोर मेजर मसल्स, एंड इसमें भी इंट्रिंसिक में भी चार ही मसल्स होती हैं हमारी, और एक्सट्रिंसिक में भी चार ही मसल्स हमारी होती हैं. सो द फोर मसल्स, एक्सट्रिंसिक मसल्स, द फर्स्ट वन इज द, यू कैन नोट डाउन दिस, स्टाइलो glossus. The second is the hyoglossus. The third one is the palatoglossus, and the fourth one is the genioglossus. So these are the four main muscles, right? Now let's discuss about their attachment. The styloglossus, just break this word, styloglossus. This styloglossus muscle attaches the tongue to the styloid process, right? This is the styloid bone. So this glossus means tongue, right? Stylo means styloid process. So this tongue attaches the tongue. This muscle attaches the tongue to the styloid process, right? Next is the hyoglossus. Hyo refers to the hyoid bone. Glossus refer to the tongue. Sorry. So the tongue attaches, this muscle attaches the tongue to the hyoid bone. Next is the palatoglossus. Palato refer to the soft palate. So the muscle which attaches the tongue to the soft palate is the palatoglossus muscle. Next is the genioglossus. The tongue attaches to the mandible through the genioglossus muscle. Okay, so there are four attachment which I discussed. The first one is the stylo with the styloid bone. Okay, let's discuss about the attachment. Styloid bone, the first one is the styloid bone. The second one is the hyoid bone. The third one is the soft palate. The fourth one is the mandible. Styloid process, hyoid bone, palate, soft palate, and mandible. And attachment are the styloglossus, hyoglossus, palatoglossus, genioglossus. Simple. Just remember these things, right? Now, there are few things which are different in the sheep and goat. We'll discuss later also, but let me tell you here. In sheep and goat, torus linguae is less prominent, and filiform papillae and fungiform papillae, these are small and smooth, right? Now let's discuss about the blood supply and the nerve supply. So we already discussed everything about the tongue, and we will discuss species difference in the next video, right? Otherwise this video will be very long. So let's discuss about the blood supply. So the blood supply is through the lingual branch. It is through the lingual branch. This is the lingual artery, right? So this is the blood supplies through the lingual branch of linguofacial artery. Okay, so the branch, as you can see, this is the branch, lingual branch, and it is from the linguofacial artery. ठीक है, तो ये blood supply होगा. And now let's discuss about the nerve supply. So nerve supply is, if we talk about the nerve supply, so there are two major fibers for the nerve supply. The first one is the sensory fiber, and second one is the motor fiber. So as we all know, motor fiber are those which bring the signal from the brain to the organ or the body, whereas the sensory fibers are those which take the input from the organ towards the brain, right? So let's discuss about sensory first. So for sensory, we have three main nerves. The first one is branches from fifth. So fifth one is the trigeminal, right? The second is the chorda tympani branch from the seventh cranial nerve. Okay, and a branch from the ninth cranial nerve, that is the glossopharyngeal nerve, right? So fifth, seventh and ninth, these are the three main nerves which provide the sensory branches to the tongue, right? And if we talk about the motor, then only one nerve is act or provide the motor fiber, that is the hypoglossal nerve. So these nerve attachments are important. Now let's discuss about few different points. The chorda tympani nerve carry the taste sensation from the anterior 2 by 3rd portion. That is very important thing, right? This question can be asked in your exam. So let's assume that this is the anterior 2 by 3rd portion. So there is a nerve which carry the sensation. This is known as the chorda tympani, chorda tympani nerve, which carry the from the anterior 2 by 3rd, right? Whereas the branches from the ninth carry from the posterior 1 by 3rd, branches from the ninth cranial nerve, right? So this is important. And where trigeminal nerve take the general sensation like touch, pain and temperature. So this is the function of different sensory nerves we already discussed about fifth, seventh, and ninth. Now, so fifth take the this, and the ninth take the posterior 1 by 3rd, and the trigeminal take the sensation from the touch, pain, and temperature, and the hyoglossus is the motor nerve. I think everything is clear now. In the next video, we will discuss about the species difference in the tongue of different species, right? And you can like this video if you find this topic interesting, and you can comment your query in the comment section. Thanks for watching.